Where are you right now? In a room that feels too quiet, a season that looks empty, surrounded by silence that feels like God walked away. He didn't. That silence is not rejection, it is separation. That loneliness is not abandonment, it is elevation. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. And if life has been stripping things away lately, people you loved are becoming distant. Doors that once opened now stay shut. Plans that made sense suddenly fall apart. Listen closely. When God chooses a person, He isolates them, not to break them, but to build them in secret. Because what will come from you later requires a version of you that cannot be formed in comfort. Some of you don't realize it yet, but this is not a season of loss. It is spiritual training. It is emotional refinement. It is the construction of inner power, psychological boundaries, self-worth, discipline, and destiny. You feel alone because God pulled you out of the crowd. You feel misunderstood because you're no longer meant to fit where you used to. You feel hidden because you're being prepared, not displayed. He is not ignoring you. He is isolating the chosen. And today, we're going to break down the 7 powerful reasons why God isolates you, the reasons most people never see until the season is over. If you're watching this, it's not a coincidence. There's a reason God separated you. Now, let's uncover it. When God isolates the chosen, He starts with subtraction, not blessing, not elevation, subtraction. People leave, opportunities fade, plans collapse, and you stand there wondering what you did wrong when, in reality, God is removing what cannot go with you into your next level. We think isolation means abandonment, but isolation is often God clearing space, clearing noise, clearing distractions that feel comfortable but kill purpose, clearing relationships that feel familiar but damage self-worth, clearing habits that soothe the emotions but sabotage the soul. Sometimes God protects you not by adding but by taking away everything that delays your destiny. Because here's the truth few people want to face. Not everything that feels good is good for your calling. Not everyone who walks with you is meant to arrive with you. Distractions don't always come looking like danger. Sometimes they look like affection, support, friendship. Sometimes distractions come disguised as blessings, people who applaud your comfort, not your growth. Success that feeds your ego, not your spirit. A job that pays well but kills your purpose slowly. We pray for elevation while holding on to things that keep us grounded in mediocrity. So, God intervenes. He lets calls go unanswered. He lets relationships fade without closure. He lets opportunities die before they mature. He lets you feel the discomfort of absence so deeply that you finally turn inward instead of outward. Because you cannot hear God clearly while your life is loud with distractions. We scroll. We chase. We cling, but destiny requires spiritual discipline, emotional intelligence, and psychological boundaries. And boundaries rarely form in crowds. They form in solitude. When God isolates you, you begin to notice things you overlooked before. You realize who drains you and who refills you, who shows up only when you shine and who still knocks when your season is dark. You start to see patterns. You start to discern motives. You stop excusing behaviors that violate your peace. That is emotional intelligence awakening. That is self-worth growing teeth. Because love without boundaries becomes self-harm. Loyalty without discernment becomes slavery. Comfort without growth becomes a cage. So God shakes the foundation. He removes what you wouldn't have released alone. He takes away what you prayed to keep, not to hurt you, but to safeguard your destiny. Think about Moses removed from the palace into the wilderness. Think about Paul blinded and separated to see truth. Think about Joseph from family to pit to prison. Every chosen one in Scripture was separated before they were seen, because God builds his greatest warriors in silence. He removes distractions so he can retrain your vision from what is shiny to what is divine, from what is temporary to what is eternal, from what pleases people to what fulfills purpose. And in that quiet place, you begin to hear him differently, not through noise, not through crowds, but through stillness. You start to notice, why did that person leave, even though you gave them everything? Why did that opportunity close when you prayed for it to open? Why does comfort suddenly feel suffocating? Because the door wasn't closing, it was being locked behind you, so you can't go back. Sometimes God doesn't answer, because answering would let you return to what he saved you from. Sometimes God doesn't restore what you lost, because you prayed from pain. But he's moving you toward purpose. You may feel empty now, but emptiness is space. Space for new people. Space for new instruction. Space for alignment with destiny. You are not losing, you are being refined. The chosen are not isolated to be punished. They are isolated to be repositioned, recalibrated, rebuilt. And if you're in that season right now where conversations dry up, where your phone is silent, where you feel like the world moved on without you, do not panic. Do not rush. Do not chase what God is removing. Lean in. Listen. Slow down. This is where God reveals the next step. Because distractions don't always fall off gently, sometimes they are torn out. Not because you're weak, but because you're called. Distraction is the enemy of destiny. Noise is the enemy of clarity. Comfort is the enemy of purpose. And isolation is a divine filter removing everything that cannot breathe in your next season. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask a different question. What is God clearing space for? Because when the chosen feel alone, they are never truly alone. They are being positioned for something bigger than they prayed for. And when he's done, the things you lost will make sense. The silence will speak loudly, and you will look back and whisper, "Thank God you removed what I was afraid to release." When God isolates the chosen, it does something subtle but powerful. It exposes people, not by confrontation, not by argument, but through silence and distance. Because when God pulls you back from the crowd, the ones who were only there for what you gave them stop showing up. The ones who clapped when you were shining fall quiet when life dims. The ones who enjoyed your softness grow distant when you develop boundaries. Isolation becomes a divine mirror, reflecting the truth of relationships you never questioned. You start to see who checked on you when you had nothing to offer, who still prayed for you when you were struggling, who loved you when you weren't convenient, who stayed when access wasn't easy. Because loyalty is rarely revealed in celebration, it is revealed in absence. Some people loved the version of you that was always available, always giving, always forgiving, always shrinking yourself to make space for others. But when God chooses you, He stops allowing you to live like that. He begins to protect your spirit with psychological boundaries. So your kindness is no longer used as a weakness. You will notice who gets offended when you stop overextending yourself, who becomes distant when you stop carrying what was never yours to carry, who leaves the moment you stop bleeding for their comfort. And it hurts deeply, because sometimes the ones God removes are the ones you prayed to keep, people you would have given the world to, who couldn't even meet you halfway. But hear this clearly, people who walk away are never a loss, they are clarity. Judas walked with Jesus, ate with him, served beside him, yet he was not for him. Some people are close to you physically but far from you spiritually. They enjoy proximity, but they cannot handle purpose. Look at Job when everything collapsed. His friends didn't comfort him, they accused him. Look at Joseph. His own brothers sold him because his calling threatened their comfort. And now, look at your life. How many people loved you when you were small, but grew distant when you started growing? How many celebrated your potential, but disappeared when sacrifice began? How many were happy as long as you stayed beneath them, but became threatened the moment you stepped into self-worth and inner power? Isolation is not God cutting people out. It is God revealing alignment. Some friendships were assignments, not destiny. Some relationships were lessons, not lifetime companions. Some circles were seasons, not forever. And God knows the difference, even when you don't. So He separates, not to punish you, but to shield you from people who would weaken your faith, abuse your empathy, or sabotage your elevation. Because the chosen cannot take everyone with them. The next level has weight, and not everyone is built for that climb. Some people love your potential, but not your process. Some love your gift, but not your discipline. Some love the light in you, but hate the responsibility it demands from them. And when God isolates you, He allows these cracks to show. Conversations feel different. The energy shifts. You sense jealousy where you once felt connection. You notice silence where you once heard applause. This is discernment maturing. This is emotional intelligence evolving. Because God would rather let people fall off now than let them betray you later. He would rather break your heart early than let the wrong hands hold your destiny. Isolation is God saying, you deserve reciprocity, not extraction, loyalty, not convenience, alignment, not attachment. So when people drift away, let them. Do not chase what God is removing. Do not beg doors to reopen that He has closed for your protection. Do not shrink yourself to fit relationships you've outgrown. The chosen are not separated because they are unlovable. They are separated because they are becoming unmissable. God is building a new circle around you, people who pray with you, not prey on you. People who celebrate growth, not control it. People who love you in your quiet season, not only when you're shining. And when this season ends, you will look around and see fewer people, but deeper connection. Less noise, but more support. Fewer crowds, but people who are called to your journey, not attached to your presence. This is not loneliness, it is loyalty being filtered by God Himself. So instead of saying, "Why is everyone leaving?" begin to say, "Thank you, God, for revealing what I could not see." Because when God exposes who is real, He also exposes who never was. And that revelation is painful but liberating. The world sees isolation as punishment. Heaven sees it as preparation. And the chosen eventually learn that the wilderness is not where you are forgotten, it is where you are forged. Because character is not built when life is easy. Wisdom is not born from comfort. Strength does not grow in celebration. It grows in pressure, silence, and resistance. Look at every great figure in history, spiritual or stoic. Moses had a palace but became a leader in the wilderness. David was anointed, yet sent back to the fields. Joseph dreamed of thrones, but first lived in prisons. Jesus was the Son, yet walked alone for 40 days. Even the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, wrote meditations during war and illness. Epictetus found freedom of mind in slavery. Seneca developed serenity through exile. Different stories, same formula: isolation, refinement, elevation. Because before greatness is revealed publicly, character must be strengthened privately. And God isolates you for that reason. Not to break you, but to stretch you. Not to punish you, but to purify you. Not to weaken you, but to prepare you to carry what you prayed for. You think you're waiting, but God is working. He is cutting impatience out of you. He is burning ego out of you. He is sharpening your emotional intelligence. He is teaching you boundaries, discipline, resilience. He is maturing your reactions, stabilizing your spirit, training you to fight battles internally before you face them externally. Because if you enter your calling without character, success becomes a snare. Attention becomes a distraction. Power becomes corruption. Blessings become burdens. God loves you too much to let elevation ruin you. So He isolates you. He removes applause. Because you must learn to validate yourself. He removes certainty. Because faith must replace control. He removes comfort. Because growth is born in discomfort. You start noticing strange shifts inside you. You become quieter, not weaker. More observing, less reacting. More selective, less accessible. More disciplined, less distracted. Your conversations change. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for chaos drops. Your soul outgrows noise. You no longer crave attention, you crave peace. You stop seeking validation, you seek purpose. You stop chasing people, you chase growth. And, slowly, you realize God is building a different version of you, one the past you couldn't have carried. Because the version of you that tolerated disrespect cannot enter a season of divine royalty. The version of you that ran from pain cannot carry spiritual authority. The version of you that needed approval cannot lead with power. So isolation becomes the classroom of transformation, a school where distractions are removed, and the soul becomes receptive. You learn patience not when things go as planned, but when they don't. You learn faith not when answers arrive quickly, But when God is silent, you learn discipline not when habits are easy, but when every part of you wants to quit. You learn self-worth not when people applaud you, but when they leave and you still know your value. God is not just preparing blessings for you, He is preparing you for blessings. Because a throne means nothing if the heart sitting on it is fragile. A crown is heavy, and only a developed character can carry it. So, if this season feels lonely, if you feel stripped, stretched, refined, you're not failing. You're evolving. You are being trained for the kind of future that requires emotional mastery, spiritual discipline, and quiet strength. One day you will look back and realize the silence saved you. It broke your dependence on people. It built a backbone where only softness lived. It taught you to hear God's whisper instead of the world's noise. And when God finishes, you will rise differently, not reactive but responsive, not insecure but rooted, not fragile but unshakable, not fearful but forged. Isolation isn't the end of your story, it's the shaping of the warrior you're becoming. There comes a point in every chosen person's journey where God gently or suddenly removes every place you used to lean on, not because He wants you to fall, but because He wants to teach you where true stability comes from. As long as you have alternatives, you will rely on them. As long as you have backup plans, faith remains optional, not essential. So, God isolates you for one of the most powerful purposes of all dependence. Not on people, not on outcomes, but on Him. This is why doors close you thought would open. Why opportunities fade right when you needed them most. Why the people you expected to support you vanish without warning. Why what once worked suddenly stops working. It feels like loss. But spiritually, it is alignment, because faith is not believing God when everything makes sense. Faith is trusting Him when nothing does. Look at Abraham. God told him, "Go," without giving a map, a plan, or clarity. And Abraham moved. He didn't need proof, he needed trust. And that trust made him the father of nations. Look at Peter walking on water. The storm was raging. Waves, towering, logic said drown. But Jesus said, "Come." And Peter discovered something the boat could never teach him. Miracles live where comfort ends. And look at your life. How many times have you been reduced to the place where all you could say was God? If you don't do it, it won't be done. That moment wasn't weakness. That moment was rebirth. Because dependence on God is not losing power, it is discovering the source of power. You learn that people are resources, not the source. Money is a tool, not security. Plans are guidance, not guarantee. When God is all you have, you discover He is all you ever needed. But this revelation doesn't come in a crowd, it comes in isolation. In the silence, faith grows. In the hidden season, trust matures. In uncertainty, spiritual backbone is formed. This is where emotional intelligence intertwines with spiritual discipline, where you stop panicking and start surrendering. You go from, "Why is this happening?" to "What are you teaching me through this?" You shift from, "I have nothing left," to "I have God, so I lack nothing." And that shift changes everything, because dependence births a different kind of strength, calm strength, rooted strength, a strength that isn't loud but unbreakable, a strength that walks through storms without losing peace. You stop seeking answers externally, you learn to hear the whisper internally. While others run for validation, you run to prayer. While others drown in fear, you breathe in faith. While others crumble under pressure, you stand not by might, but by spirit. God isolates to break self-reliance and build God-reliance. He detaches you from what is unstable so he can attach you to what is eternal. And one day, when you enter your calling, when blessings appear, when influence expands, when rooms open you never imagined, people will ask, "How are you so calm? How do you carry so much weight with peace? How do you move with such confidence?" And you will smile because they didn't see the wilderness. They didn't see the nights you cried but kept going. They didn't see the battles you fought in silence. They didn't see you standing with nothing but faith. Isolation didn't destroy you, it disciplined you. It taught you how to walk with God, not simply talk about Him. So, if you're in a season where support feels gone, where prayers seem unanswered, where God is silent, understand this: a teacher is silent during the test. Not absent, present, watching, guiding, strengthening. Because when you come out of this season, you won't just believe God exists, you will know Him. Not through sermons, but through survival. Not through theory, but through experience. And that type of knowing, no storm can shake. Every elevation requires separation. Before God moves you forward, He disconnects you from what can't go with you. Not everyone you walked with is meant to walk into your destiny. Not every environment that raised you is designed to contain your future. So God isolates you not to reduce you, but to reposition you. And positioning seldom feels like progress. Sometimes it feels like losing. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like you're going backward when you thought you'd go forward. But hear this clearly: setbacks are often setups in disguise. Joseph wasn't positioned for the palace by comfort. He was positioned through betrayal, pit, slavery, prison. To human eyes, it looked like regression, but spiritually, it was divine trajectory. Every step down was preparing him for a step up. Had he stayed home, he'd remain a dreamer. But isolation made him a leader. Sometimes God allows certain doors to shut, not because they weren't good, but because they weren't God. Sometimes the relationship ending wasn't rejection, it was redirection. Sometimes losing that job wasn't failure, it was release. Sometimes the silence you're sitting in is the soil where destiny is growing roots. You asked God for elevation, He answered with isolation. Because before He brings you into new land, He must remove old anchors. Before He opens the door to next, He closes the door to comfortable. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Think about Moses, raised in Pharaoh's palace: luxury, privilege, influence. Yet God pulled him out and placed him in obscurity. Why? Because palace training builds royalty, but wilderness training builds deliverers. You are not being positioned for a normal life. Your story carries calling. That's why your pathway doesn't look like others. That's why your journey feels lonely. Chosen ones are often misunderstood because what God is preparing them for has no reference point. Destiny doesn't come packaged in clarity, it comes disguised as transition. You feel the shift, the pulling away, the divine rearranging. You can't explain it, but your spirit knows. This is not the end, this is the alignment. Even the Stoics understood this truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way," meaning resistance is not blocking you, it's building you. What feels like delay is shaping your emotional resilience, deepening your quiet confidence, and sharpening your divine awareness. Because where you are going, you cannot depend on validation, comfort, or the familiar. Influence requires resilience. Leadership requires solitude. Purpose requires pruning. God isolates you because the next level requires a version of you that the past could not birth. This is where your self-worth strengthens. This is where psychological boundaries are built. This is where emotional intelligence matures. This is where you stop chasing what's leaving and start trusting what's coming. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" you begin whispering, "God, lead me." Instead of begging people to stay, you start thanking God they left. Instead of fearing closed doors, you start discerning protected paths. What you lost was never meant to hold your future. Who walked away wasn't assigned to your purpose. The silence isn't punishment, it's preparation for elevation. And when the positioning is complete, breakthrough comes quietly, then suddenly. The right connections arrive. Opportunities align. Conversations open. Rooms you once felt unqualified to enter become places you're called to lead. And people will say, "You came out of nowhere." But you'll know you didn't come out of nowhere. You came out of isolation, out of refinement, out of sacrifice, out of prayer, out of nights you almost gave up but didn't. The palace is the public victory, the wilderness was the private preparation. Remember, this God is not just changing your situation, He is changing your position. He is not just moving things around you, He is moving you. So don't resist what's leaving. Don't mourn what God removed. Don't panic when plans fall apart. He is rerouting you to something greater. And when the time is right, when the character is ready, when the faith is matured, when your heart is aligned, God will reveal why isolation was necessary, and you will whisper with gratitude, "Now I see it." Before God reveals who you are becoming, He must confront who you used to be, not publicly, not with applause, but privately through isolation. Because the greatest prison is not walls, it is the mind. Old beliefs, old fears, old identity, old patterns that once kept you safe, but now keep you small. You prayed for transformation, but transformation means disruption. You asked for elevation, but elevation means separation. You asked to walk in purpose, but purpose demands rebirth. So God isolates you to break what has held you captive for years. He exposes insecurity so you learn confidence. He reveals wounds so you seek healing. He shows you weakness so you develop strength. He brings triggers to the surface, so you outgrow them rather than hide them. Because what you refuse to confront will eventually control you. This season may feel like everything you depended on is crumbling. But spiritually, you are being rebuilt from the inside out. Look at Israel leaving Egypt. They were free physically, but mentally still slaves. They begged to return to bondage because bondage felt familiar. And God said, "I didn't lead you out to bring you back. I led you out to bring you through." Some of you are in that same wilderness, free, but not yet fully delivered. Called, but still shedding layers of the old self. Destined, but undergoing construction. Isolation becomes the detox. Your mind is being rewired. Your identity is being rewritten. Your spirit is being upgraded. You start questioning old habits. Why do I react emotionally to small things? Why do I tolerate disrespect? Why do I fear growth? Why do I shrink when I should stand tall? That awareness is not confusion, it is awakening. God is showing you the cage, so you learn how to walk out of it. Stoics called this self-mastery. Psychology calls it rewiring mental patterns. Scripture calls it renewing the mind. Different language, same truth. Old thinking cannot carry new calling. You cannot step into promised land with Egypt still in your spirit. You cannot enter destiny dependent on validation. You cannot wear a crown while clinging to insecurity. So God isolates you, not to punish you, but to remove what would sabotage you later. He breaks attachment to people so you discover identity without approval. He breaks attachment to outcomes so you develop peace without control. He breaks attachment to comfort so discipline replaces complacency. This is why isolation feels painful. Something is dying. Not you, the unhealed version of you. The one who needed to be perfect to feel worthy. The one who lowered standards to be loved. The one who stayed silent to keep peace. The one who apologized for existing. The one who carried guilt that was never yours. God is burying that version so he can resurrect the one you were always meant to be. And rebirth is rarely gentle, but it is holy. You will feel the stretching because your spirit is outgrowing your old shell. You will feel the burning because impurities cannot go with you. You will feel the breaking because limitations are being shattered. But, beloved, hear this. You are not breaking down, you are breaking out. Out of fear and into faith. Out of survival and into purpose. Out of insecurity and into self-worth. Out of smallness and into greatness. When this process completes, you will notice a shift inside you. You respond instead of react. You set boundaries without guilt. You love without losing yourself. You walk away without fear. You speak truth without trembling. You carry calm like armor. Your silence becomes strength, not weakness. That is what isolation was for. To break habits that once protected you but now limit you. To break cycles passed down through generations. To break shame off your identity. To break the ceiling above your potential. Because new levels require a new vessel refined, resilient, reborn. And when God finishes this chapter of your transformation, you will step into rooms that once intimidated you and feel like you belong there. Not by arrogance, but by awareness of who walks with you. Isolation isn't where you lose yourself, It's where you finally meet yourself. Every chosen one carries a calling, but calling without preparation becomes collapse. Elevation without preparation becomes destruction. A gift without discipline becomes a burden. So God isolates you not just to refine you, not just to break limitations, but to prepare you to carry what you were born for. Because what's coming requires more than talent, it requires capacity. It requires character. It requires spiritual maturity and emotional intelligence. It requires a heart anchored in purpose, not swayed by praise or wounded by rejection. And preparation happens away from the crowd, where no one is watching, where no one is clapping, where no one is praising your growth. The chosen are always prepared in private before they are revealed in public. Look at David, anointed as king, but sent back to the field, oil on his head, but sheep still in front of him. He killed lions and bears when no one saw, because one day he would kill Goliath when everyone watched. Hidden training, private victories, silent battles that build public power. Look at Moses, 40 years in the wilderness before confronting Pharaoh. Not punishment, preparation. He learned patience with sheep before he led nations with stubborn hearts. Look at Joseph's dreams in his youth. Fulfillment in adulthood. Between dream and throne, pit slavery, prison. Not regression, development. Each season shaped his leadership. Each betrayal sharpened his discernment. Each delay strengthened his humility. Look at Jesus baptized, called, beloved, yet immediately led into the wilderness. Before miracles came surrender. Before ministry came isolation. Before the cross came the quiet place. Even the Stoics knew this truth. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave, and God tests the chosen, not to expose weakness, but to forge strength." You feel hidden right now, but God hides what He values. Seed is hidden before it grows. Baby is hidden before it walks. Promise is hidden before it manifests. You are not behind, you are being built. You are not waiting, you are being woven into destiny. This isolation is training you in ways you cannot yet see. You're learning to trust instead of control. You're learning to walk by faith instead of sight. You're learning to hear God's whisper in stillness. You're learning to stand alone without crumbling. You're learning to choose peace over reaction. You're learning to love without losing yourself. You're learning to carry responsibility with grace. You're learning to be humble in growth and grounded in success. These are not small lessons, they are foundation stones for greatness. Because when God opens the next season, you won't have time to get ready. You will need to be ready. Ready to lead without fear. Ready to speak with authority. Ready to carry influence without arrogance. Ready to be seen without needing validation. Ready to be elevated without losing your soul. And one day soon, doors will open that closed in previous seasons. People will return who once doubted you. Opportunities will seek you instead of you chasing them. Rooms that never noticed you will call your name. And when you walk in, you will walk in different. Not as the version that broke, but as the version that rebuilt. Not as the wounded one, but as the warrior. Not as the insecure one, but as the appointed. Not as the overlooked, but as the chosen, and others will wonder how you carry yourself with such calm authority, how you remain peaceful under pressure, how you speak with conviction and compassion, how you navigate storms without losing center. They won't know the cost of your confidence. They won't know the nights you cried but kept going. They won't know the battles you fought in silence. They won't know what the wilderness taught you, but you will know God was preparing you the whole time. The isolation that felt like delay was the training ground for destiny. The silence that felt like absence was the voice of refinement. The struggle that felt like breaking was the stretching of capacity. The waiting that felt like wasted time was divine synchronization. The next chapter is calling, and you won't step into it half-built. You will step in ready. When God isolates you, it is never abandonment, it is alignment. It is the season where your roots grow deeper, your spirit grows stronger, and your calling grows louder. Not everyone will understand your silence. Not everyone was meant to walk into your next chapter. But those who are chosen by God are not built in comfort, they are forged in solitude, refined in patience, and revealed in His timing. So, if you're in isolation right now, don't rush the process. Don't force what God is removing. Don't reopen doors He closed to protect you. Stay still. Stay obedient. Stay becoming. Because when the time is right, God will bring you out not as who you were, but as who you were called to be. And the people who overlooked you will witness the version God was preparing in secret. The silent years will make sense. The pain will reveal purpose. And the exile will turn into elevation. If this message spoke to your spirit, hit like. Subscribe for more powerful Stoic and faith-based wisdom. And turn on the bell so you never miss what's coming next. Comment below, "I trust God's process," to declare that you're ready for the season you're stepping into. And if you're in isolation right now, you're not alone. You're being shaped. You're being chosen. Your breakthrough is closer than it feels.